are aliens and demons preying on the homeless. And then we take a look at a story that'll have you asking the question, are you right now living your best life? And what I mean by that is, have you already come back from the future to change things? And this is the path that you set for yourself from the future. You're like, wait, what? Yeah, listen, man, it's a weird story. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing, and I hope you guys have some awesome plans for the weekend. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. I think it's going to be a short episode. I'm feeling a little under the weather. All my mouth stuff. Your mouth back into it? Well, someone who always loves my mouth being everywhere, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for SK Groovin'. Woohoo! Yeah, we running on into my mouth as they're running on into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. SK Groovin' made a donation during our Thanksgiving live stream, and everyone who did gets 2 shout-outs. So SK Groovin', this is your second shout-out. Thank you so much for financially supporting the show. If you guys can't support the show financially through live streams or the Patreon or the merch store, it's totally fine. It really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Also, next weekend is the last weekend of February, so we're going to have our Dead Rabbit Radio movie night and Dead Rabbit Radio movie morning. If you guys want to be a part of that, just look in the show notes. I'll have links and stuff as we get closer to it. The night version is for Patreons only, but the Saturday morning version is for everyone. So that'll be a lot of fun. I really look forward to that. So we'll be doing the Dead Rabbit Radio movie weekend next weekend. More details will follow. Okay, SK Groovin', let's go ahead and get this party started. I'm going to toss you I don't think we've done this before. SK Groovin', I'm going to go ahead and toss you the Carpenter kite. Everyone climb on board this kite. SK Groovin', I hope you can run really fast. You gotta make us airborne. SK Groovin', fly that Carpenter kite out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way to British Columbia. Whee! What was that? So like I was having sex. You're like, Jason, if that's what a guy sounds like when he's having sex, if that's the first thing that pops in your head, you need to go to a doctor. Speaking of doctors, so I went to the dentist the other day because of all of my weird mouth stuff. I thought my tooth had been removed. You're looking for the fast forward button. This will be short. This whole episode will be short. I thought that I had eaten a chocolate chip cookie and my tooth came out, but it didn't, actually. It didn't. The tooth is still in the bone. It's a long story. You can listen to the Tuesday's episode or not. Just skip this one as well. No, I thought that my tooth had come out, that it hadn't. What's been going on is every single day since then, a new glob of flesh has developed in my mouth. I went to the dentist and he goes, no, the tooth is still there. And I go, but what about all this new flesh that's developed over the course of like 2 days? And he's like, oh, that's fine. As he's calling his CIA handler, we found him. We found test subject 001, the man with the mutant mouth. Well, then anyways, I was like, okay, whatever. So I went home and I was eating some macaroni and cheese because that's all I eat nowadays. I think one of two things happened. I think I swallowed the gooey flesh. Like the flesh is just mutating in my mouth so quickly. I think I ate some of it. I'm all, delicious. I'm so yummy. Because now the big overhang isn't there. It's gone. After I got done eating some macaroni, that you're throwing up. You're all, so gross, bro. We're talking about your mouth. 1, it's not interesting. And 2, it's disgusting. You ate some of your own gum tissue? Well, the macaroni and cheese I eat has bacon bits in it. It's like a bacon bit mac and cheese. So I wouldn't know if I ate some of my own flesh. But now, like right as I was eating macaroni and cheese, I noticed the fleshy overhang was gone. But now there's something stuck in there. And I don't know if it's more flesh or macaroni and cheese. It's been there for like 2 days at this point. I don't think it's a mac noodle. I don't think it's a macaroni, I guess is the word for it, but there's something soft and gooey inside of this depression in my mouth. Like I have a tooth there that is halfway extracted. They're going to take the rest out in about 2 weeks. I go to the oral surgeon, she's all, phew-wee. What's that horrible smell? It smells like 2-week-old macaroni and cheese. I'm all, She's all throwing up. I keep picking around in there with a toothpick to try to get the macaroni and cheese to come out, but it won't. So I think it's more flesh because it's wet and gooey and I can move it around with my tongue and it doesn't stink like rotting cheese. So I don't think it's macaroni and cheese. I think it's more flesh. I think I did eat some of it. Again, I'll pause for you to dry retch a little bit. I think I ate some of my gum tissue and more has grown, but it's grown in a different place. There's 2 chunks of it, whatever it is. It's either 2-day-old macaroni and cheese. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be speaking live at the Oregon Ghost Conference in Seaside, Oregon, March 27th through the 29th. If you want to come, you're all putting a flashlight into my mouth. You're all, where's the macaroni and cheese? It's either, I don't think it's macaroni and cheese because I'm like brushing my teeth and poking it with a toothpick and it hurts. Right? If it was just macaroni and cheese, I'd be able to flip it out and I'd have no nerve endings. Usually when you eat something, you don't get nerve endings wrapped around it. I think it's flesh, but it wasn't these fleshy lumps weren't there just a couple days ago. I can move it around with my tongue and stuff like that. Probably should stop. Yeah, when I look it up online, they're like, don't move it. If you have any flesh growing in your mouth, don't move it. Apparently, this can happen, but does it happen in a day? To an ordinary person, no. Just me, the man with the mutant mouth. I'll keep you guys updated. You're like, please don't. We just don't want to know. It's disgusting. SK Groovin is flying us on this kite all the way out to British Columbia. Specifically, we're headed to Vancouver, British Columbia. And even more specific than that, we're headed to downtown Eastside Vancouver in an area known as Victory Square. If you're familiar with this area, you're like, oh no, I don't want to be here. But if you're not, I didn't know anything about this area. Apparently, it's a pretty bad neighborhood to be in. There's a lot of homeless people. In fact, looking online, this area of downtown Vancouver has a homeless population of 2,000 people. That's more homeless people than most high schools have students, if you think about it, right? That's a lot of homeless people. And, you know, you have a lot of issues that come along with homelessness, drugs and crime, all sorts of horrible things. So it's not a great area to hang out in. And that's where we're going to meet this guy. We don't have his real name. We're going to call him Jerry. Jerry goes, listen, it's a bad part of town. No one likes to hang out here. But, you know, you got to sometimes walk through it or drive through it because you're going to somewhere else. And on this particular day, he found himself walking down the street. And he goes, I'm walking down the street, and about a half a block away from me, half a block in front of me, I see this homeless man start staggering down the sidewalk. And unfortunately, that's nothing new, right? You'd see that maybe 2,000 times if you hung out there for a day, because there's 2,000 of them. But this, he didn't do that. He was just walking by. He's not like he has a little counter. He's all, click, 19.99 left to go. He sees a homeless man stagger down the street and then stop, look up in the air for a moment, and that is when the homeless man began to projectile vomit. What? It's barely paranormal. It's not paranormal at all. Well, you didn't let me finish. It's super paranormal. Yes, homeless people throw up. Everybody throws up. Every now and then, like you just did during my macaroni and cheese story. It wasn't that a homeless man was throwing up that alarmed Jerry or perplexed him or even made him a little curious, really. He said this homeless man was staggering, stopped, looked straight up in the air and began to projectile vomit straight up. You're like, oh, that's even grosser. I thought it was just like throwing up in an arch. Nope, straight up in the air. I don't know if any got on the homeless dude's face, but The homeless man begins throwing up straight into the air, and the vomit goes about 7 feet up. So it is paranormal. That's just not possible. That would be throwing up like 2 times your height, right? Because your stomach is halfway as tall as you are. So if you're 6 feet tall, your stomach is 3 feet off the ground. And then if you're throwing up 7 feet, technically you're throwing up 3 feet from your stomach to your mouth. And then an additional 7 feet. So this dude vomited for 10 feet altogether, including his intestines. You're like, oh, I guess. I don't think doctors normally use it as a measurement. But anyways, he vomits straight up. This 7-foot-long stream of vomit is shooting straight up into the air. But if you didn't think that was paranormal, listen to this. It wasn't just normal vomit. Just a word. You're like, I wish I had never heard that right in my ears because I have headphones on. It wasn't normal vomit. This vomit was fluorescent green. It's shooting out of his mouth straight up in the air. It's fluorescent green. And this stream of vomit went on for about 15 to 20 seconds. Even though Jerry was a half a block away from this, he's watching this man projectile vomit green fluorescent fluid straight up into the air. After a few seconds, Jerry goes, oh, what's that horrible smell? Oh. The vomit was super stinky. So stinky that he smelled it a half a block away. Now, here's the thing. One of these things, you're right, is not paranormal. Vomiting hobos are not paranormal, but a guy vomiting, a homeless man vomiting, or anyone vomiting, 7 feet in the air, 10 feet including from where the origin is, his stomach. Fluorescent green, and now a stench, and it lasted for 15, 20 seconds, and now it stinks a half a block away. Jerry's like, pew-wee, and then continues on his journey. But about 90 minutes later, when Jerry is on his way back home, he has to walk back through Victory Square, and as he's walking home, he can still smell the vomit. The area has been touched by this disgusting bodily fluid. Not touched, stained. The whole area still smells of whatever this man vomited. About a week later, Jerry was walking through Victory Square once more, and he walked by where the homeless man was throwing up. You know, he was throwing straight up in the air, but all things that go up must come down. The vomit did splatter on the sidewalk. When Jerry was walking by there a week later, he could see that patch of sidewalk had been eroded away or melted by the man's vomit. Now, as a one-off story, it's just a weird guy vomiting, and you think, well, maybe he was drinking brake fluid or antifreeze, right? Antifreeze has a kind of a fruity flavor. I've never tasted it myself, obviously. But, people who do, right? Connoisseurs of antifreeze. They're like, oh, you have to go to AutoZone. They have the best. Apparently, antifreeze, or one of those horrible chemicals, does have a fruity taste. I don't remember which one, but, people who are desperate to get drunk or they're mentally ill, they may drink brake fluid, which can also be green or antifreeze. There's a lot of different chemicals that can actually mimic a green vomit. Also, if you drink any of those, you probably would vomit. And if you threw up, let's say, antifreeze, and it landed on the sidewalk mixed with your own stomach acid, it's possible that it would melt the ground. It's possible, right? And then it melt, like there wasn't a huge depression. It just looked like the ground was not simply stained, it had etched its way, it had etched its splash on the sidewalk itself. A terrifying story, you say. You go, that is creepy. That does sound paranormal. And you're right, it does. Thank you for validating my choice. But that's not the only story we have to talk about. When I read this story, I thought, that sounds inhuman. Yeah, you could drink toxin that would replicate those effects, and that may have been what it was. But you gotta think. You gotta think for a second. A homeless dude walking down the street. People, before I tell that, let me tell you this other story that is also related to this. And we don't know exactly where this story took place. It's very short as well. We don't know the woman's name. We'll call her Nancy. Nancy goes, one time I was driving through a bad part of town, and trust me, it's a bad part of town. You'd be driving by and you see naked people running down the street, see crazy people, a dude taking a dump. It's just not a place that you want to be. But that neighborhood happens to be in between where Nancy lives and a really good pizza shop, and the pizza better be the best pizza ever. You got to put up with that, right? You're driving down the road, some guy's pooping on your car because you're at a stoplight, naked guy's rubbing his junk against your rearview mirror. Is he in the car? Yeah, he hopped in the car. He's like, I heard we're going to Little Caesars. Pizza. As he's rubbing his genitals all over your rearview mirror. It better be great pizza. But anyways, apparently it's good enough for Nancy not only to drive through this neighborhood to get pizza, she brings her kid with her. This kid's learning a lot about life, driving through this bad neighborhood. She goes, this particular day we were driving through the neighborhood, middle of the day, and she saw this dude run out in the middle of the street, right in front of her car, completely nude. But she's seen that before, and I'm sure her kid has seen that before as well. They're just like, oh, well, here's another weirdo. However, Nancy realizes this isn't just another mentally ill naked man. There's something off about this guy, more so than the other naked men that run through this neighborhood. She said, for one, he looked very gaunt, and his arms looked too long compared to the rest of his body. He's naked, and he's at a full stop in front of the car, and Nancy's watching his face just contort and twist in all sorts of horrific ways. She kind of compared it to that famous painting, The Scream, or the even more famous mask, Ghostface, from the movie Scream. The guy's contorting his face. But not only that, right? Then at that point you go, oh, this poor guy, he's suffering from some sort of mental illness, or he's really doped up, something like that, right? You just kind of like feel bad. But it's not just that. This guy is surrounded by smoke. It's coiled around his long limbs. It's sliding across his naked flesh. It seems to grasp him, hold him in place as his face contorts in pain. Ah! Ah! And Nancy's like, okay, this is new. Like, I've seen crazy people before, but this kind of has a special effect. Is there CGI? Is there an AI going on somewhere? She actually starts saying that because this isn't an instant thing. The guy's right in front of her car, surrounded by this smoke, freaking out, and she starts looking around, and she goes, there was no other cars around. She goes, at first I thought he was on fire, but he wasn't. And then she thought maybe, like, it could be car exhaust. I don't know why it's wrapping around him and tormenting him, but she goes, there was no other car in front of me, so it was not like he was just, being like, car exhaust, pollutants, the environment, freaking out. No, it was like this smoke that shouldn't be there, a smoke with no origin, wrapped tightly around this naked man's body. And she's just kind of looking at it, and her kid's like, Mom, what's that? And she's like, I don't know. Like, it's a naked man, but I don't know what's up with that smoke. And then she said the smoke lifted off of the man's body, flew up into the air just a bit, and began to float leftwards away from the scene until eventually simply disappearing. I actually saw this post. When she posted this, I asked her, I said, because she said the man looked gaunt with really long limbs. She goes, he almost didn't look human. He almost looked like an alien. And I asked her, I said, after the smoke left, did he look less alien? And she responded, she said, that's an excellent question. I think he looked maybe better afterwards because it left, i.e. the smoke. I think he looked better afterwards because it left. But, continuing the quote here, but he immediately ran back to the sidewalk, and I didn't stick around to look at him. So I don't know the answer to that. She also goes on to say, that's interesting, because she travels this area a lot. She goes, I'll be honest, I don't even know if he was homeless. Because I had never seen him before. And I've been through this area a lot, and you kind of recognize the same people there over and over again. He goes, but there was something off about him. Whether or not he was homeless, whether or not he was a resident of this area, she goes, probably not, because I had never seen him before. But she did say there was something about him that gave off an almost uncanny valley vibe. When she uses the term alien, she's basically saying he didn't look completely human. She also added there was this weird sheen to his body, which she said was silvery, but then also goes it was kind of undescribable. I really don't know how else to put it. Now, what's interesting is these two stories combined together. The second story is far more mysterious. A smoke attacking a man with no point of origin. And then flying away with a mind of its own, almost, right? It lifts off of him, makes a left, and then disappears. I mean, I know regular smoke does that as well, but here's my question. This is something that I kind of brought up a couple hundred episodes, 1,000 episodes, really. But not really on this angle. Well, I guess I have talked about it a few times over the years, but it's been a long time. I wonder if these were spiritual or alien attacks. This guy might have been an alien, but he also could have been a man in the throes of possession. Either the possession is beginning, the smoke was this demon or this entity entering his body. It was just kind of like it was either a vector of transmission or it's the way a human mind would perceive a demon. Because the fact that just because the smoke left doesn't mean the ordeal's over. That's kind of what I'm saying. The contortions in his face, or it might have been the end of a possession, who knows. The guy vomiting, too, that could have also been a horrible poisoning situation. But it could have, that's the most likely, to be fair, that's the most likely situation. But it could have also been like a demonic possession. Not just because it's green in The Exorcist or anything like that. But the fact that you could smell it a half a block away, the fact that it stained the sidewalk, while it's possible, I guess, antifreeze or brake fluid mixing with stomach acid could etch the ground, could actually start to melt away at concrete, it's not likely. Like, it would have to be the perfect set of circumstances for that to happen. Now, here's the thing. You go, well, I mean, they don't... Now, here's the thing. Maybe these aren't the two best examples of it. I think they are. Not the best examples, but I do think they're good examples because here's what I was thinking. When I read these things, if I was a demon, I would totally constantly possess homeless people and bums and drug addicts. That's who I would possess if I was a demon. And you go, well, that doesn't really make sense, Jason. Aren't demons out to corrupt people? Like, at that point, they're already at their lowest. Wouldn't you rather possess a deacon or a deacon's wife and have her develop some sort of horrible gambling problem and end up not only losing their house, but all of the church's funds as well? Wouldn't that be so delightful to do as a demon? Well, yeah, sure, right? You want to corrupt the people who feel they are incorruptible. You want to possess or influence those people that everyone around them, it could be a global celebrity or just someone respected in your community, everyone looks at him and goes, wow, that guy has it all. Not necessarily financially, doesn't drive the flashiest car, but he seems to have a great home life. He's happy all the time. Everything seems to be going for him. That guy looks like he has it figured out. And then you find out that guy is a child molester. And you're like, oh, gross. I thought that guy was like the cleanest dude in town. I thought he probably never did anything horrid. And in fact, he did one of the most horrible things possible. See, that's who, like, a demon would want to do that type of thing, right? Because it makes everyone lose a little bit of hope. And it makes everyone's faith a little bit weaker. That's true, right? That is true. But if I was a demon, I could do that stuff, but I probably would attack homeless people all the time. And here's why. Here's why. Because yes, if you found out that your boss at work stepped on kittens and uploaded these videos to some dark website, right? You find out that your boss who goes by the name Mr. Stump, you're like, that was kind of a weird thing. I always wondered if that was her legal name. Your boss, Mr. Stump, Turns out that she actually does crush videos. She steps on kittens. You're like, oh, that's why we always donated money to the animal shelter. She always seemed to bring home a lot of cats. And then you find out that she's stomping on all these cats. You're like, what? I probably have a more big reaction than that. You're like, what? No way. Well, anyways, let's talk about Jason's mouth. No, it would totally freak you out, and it'd be horrible, and it would kind of ruin the way you looked at humanity, because you were so close to someone who did something so awful. Yes. But if I was a demon, what I would do is I would possess a homeless man. And for one, because I could go about undetected for prolonged periods of time. If you possessed a mailman, it would be kind of boring thing. You're like, I'm going to mix people's mail up, and they're going to get so mad, they're going to renounce God. But let's just say a demon possessed the mailman, or there's two different ways, right? They can actually do a full-on possession, or they can just influence them. But anyways, their demonic influence over a mailman. Yeah, you could probably steal people's credit cards, or I don't actually know. Hide your electric bills so your electricity gets shut off. He's sitting there, he's all flames shooting out of his eyeballs. Well, here's the thing. Yeah, eventually the mailman, he goes home to his family and his wife notices there's something a little off about him. His kids go, Dad doesn't hug us as much. When he does, he smells of brimstone. And Mom's like, yeah, I noticed something was off about him too. I think it would be detectable quicker. You could be a demon who possessed a homeless man and do that for years. The other homeless people may go, hey, you don't want to hang out with Doug. I'm pretty sure that guy has the devil in him. But, what are you going to do? We're all homeless. We're all living on the same block. It's not like you can lock your doors. I'm just going to be walking down the street. They're like, oh, here comes Doug again. But we can just stand here. We don't have a home. And you go, well, Jay, okay, yeah, you possess a homeless man. It seems kind of like a low-hanging fruit, honestly. I was like, yeah, I don't put too much effort into this whole demon thing. But no, here's the thing. I would be one of those homeless people that would walk around I would be totally normal looking, right? I would look like a homeless person. And I would just kind of seem like an ordinary, crazy nutbag on the street corner. And then just one day at random, I'm going to walk up behind a woman with a 2x4 and bash her head in. And that happened. That happened, actually. And I'm sure it happens a ton of times that aren't in the newspaper. But there was this guy recently, I'll put it in the show notes, but this woman, 60-year-old woman, was walking down the street, and it's on video. This guy walks up with a 2x4 that has a screw in it. And she's just waiting to cross the street, and he walks up behind her and smashes her in the head so hard it rips out one of her eyeballs. The screw goes right into that eyeball. It's funny because it makes you go, oh my God, what kind of world do we live in that can happen in broad daylight? But it also is terrifying on such a animal level. Finding out that your deacon's wife liquidated all of their assets and the church is bankrupt and that family's bankrupt because she gambled it away, that is obviously worrisome. And you go, well, I hope no one in my family, I hope that never afflicts anyone in my family. Hopefully none of us ever find out a horrible secret about our boss or close family members or whatever that would shock us to our core. But if you did, you'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe that Mistress Stomp actually was stomping on animals on her free time. What does that say about people that I could work so close with her and never know that? But that is, on a way, it's still kind of it's distressing, but imagine thinking, oh my God, that could have been me. Oh my God, that could have been me. That could have been me. I could have been standing on that street corner, just minding my own business and taken a 2x4 to the head and got an eyeball ripped out. There was that other really famous story about the young woman on the bus, and the dude walked up behind her, stabbed her in the neck. And he said he was hearing voices. He'd been hearing voices for a long, long time. So, that's what I would do if I was a demon. I would be a homeless person because I could get away with horrible violence. Not saying that I want to do that, just so we're clear. Jason does not want to do that. But if I was a demon, that I would possess homeless people, because first off, I could prey on other homeless people and a lot of the underclass of society, and I would pretty much be undetected. Other homeless people would be like, yo, watch out for Doug. But you can get away with it for a long time. You can be a homeless man committing crimes for a long time before you get caught. And then, if you really wanted to terrify a city, just kill a civilian. Just kill someone walking down the street, living their best life, or riding on a bus. Just random violence. Random violence is so terrifying to people, and it really does shake you to your core. And especially now that we catch these attacks on video, you go, oh my God, that could have been me. I've stood at 1 million stoplights in my life. I've taken trips on hundreds of buses throughout my life. That easily could have been me. So I do think that you would have a smorgasbord of victims, and if you were a demon and you were possessing homeless people. I think aliens too. The reason why I said aliens in the intro, and that guy kind of looked like an alien, I did a story a long time ago that I wonder how many crazy people walking down the street, and I assume the percentage is like 0.001. It's not a lot, but we covered a story a long time ago about a homeless man ranting and raving in New York City that he was abducted by aliens, and it turns out he was like missing from his hometown or something like that, and no one could ever figure out how. He says aliens abducted him and then dropped him off in the middle of Times Square. But, he didn't live there. He disappeared from his neighborhood. I'll see if I can find that episode. I'll put it in the show notes. And I go, I wonder how many people just end up crazy. Not even crazy, right? You're telling people what actually happened to you. You were abducted by an alien, but that sounds crazy. You're just in a city that, you don't belong in. You're just walking down the street going, aliens got me, aliens got me. Maybe they did, but who's going to believe you? Who's going to believe a dude who, might look homeless, right? If I was aliens, I would abduct homeless people all the time. Because they don't want... Think about it. You've been abducted by an alien. What's the number one guess? What's the number one symptom? Is probably not the right word. Or clue that you've been abducted by an alien? It's missing time. I was driving from work to home. That trip always takes 30 minutes. When I pulled up into my driveway, my wife was freaking out. I'm 4 hours late. A lot of times there's going to be signs of missing time. I theorize two things. One, a lot of people get abducted while they're sleeping because you would not notice missing time at all. And anything you encountered, you might even think it was a dream. But homeless people, where are they going? They don't have to go to the big business meeting to finally present the Johnson account. They don't have to get to school. They don't have to get home. Like, you could abduct a homeless person and drop them off 4 hours later, and they'd be like, what? I mean, here's the thing. They're not stupid, obviously. Well, if they don't remember it, they don't remember it. If they remember being brought aboard an alien ship and you put them back down, no one's going to believe them anyways. And if they don't remember it, they don't remember it, and they'll never know that 4 hours was missing because they were sitting in that cardboard box at 3 p.m., where they always are. And the next thing they know, they're sitting in that cardboard box and it's 4 a.m. And they go, wow, what? Oh man, feels just like it was the afternoon. They wouldn't notice. And so I believe the homeless population probably does fall prey to demonic forces and aliens on a regular basis, because that's what I would do. Sure, it's low effort, right? Beaming a family of 4 out of a home so you can experiment on them one by one, that takes a lot of work. And people, what you know about, and what most people find out about me is I don't like a lot of hard work. I like easy stuff. So if I was an alien, I'd be abducting homeless people. They might be more susceptible to demonic possession or mind control or memory alteration if they already have a drug or alcohol problem, or both. Totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. And I just thought of this conspiracy theory. Let's throw on our conspiracy cap here for a second. This episode's supposed to be shorter. I just looked over that it's 40 minutes. So what's my second story? What did I want to talk about? Oh, man. Okay, but hold on. Okay, we're going to wrap this up here real quick. What if that's why there's so many homeless people? What if this is actually a plan by the... I'm not joking here. I'm not joking, but this thought did just pop in my head, so I don't know how fully formed it is, but... What if that's the reason why the homeless population in the United States is so big? Because here's the thing. It can be solved. And I'm not talking about taxing billionaires. I'm not talking about these huge social problems. When the president, is that the right word? The president of China came to visit San Francisco. All of the homeless people, San Francisco has a massive homeless population. If you thought 2,000 people was a lot. San Francisco has a massive homeless population. There's dirty needles and piles of poop that litter certain streets, not every street, sure, but there's certain neighborhoods that are just very dangerous to be on, very unclean, lots of homeless people. When the president of China was coming out to visit, all of those homeless people vanished until he left, and then they started showing up again, and once again the streets became littered with filth. And people asked the governor Gavin Newsom, why can't you do that all the time? And here's the thing, because they don't want to. They don't want to. They don't want to actually solve the problem. This is getting a little political here, but first off, I believe there's a financial incentive for certain groups, right? Nonprofits and government agencies and stuff like that to have a large homeless population. Because if the population got smaller, so would their budgets. That's just plain. I believe that. I don't even think that's a conspiracy. I don't even think that's really controversial. I think there are huge organizations that if the homeless population was solved, if it was even just lowered by half through various means, they would lose funding. So of course they don't want to do that. They were built to solve a problem that if they solve, they'll disappear. The organization will disappear. So of course they don't want to solve it. But what if there is an agreement between the United States government and aliens? That would make the most sense. Well, I mean, after the Epstein files, people always thought Pizzagate was a total conspiracy and none of it was true. And now it's turning out like Epstein had a bank account that was listed as Baal, B-A-A-L. That was like the account name, which is which is an archdemon, a false god. And they go, no, that was just a scanning error. It's meant to say bank, B-A-N-K, but when they scanned it, it said B-A-A-L. It's funny, out of all the stuff that comes out of the Epstein files, that's one that they're really trying to convince people that no, he did not have a bank account named after an ancient false god. Not weird. They're really pushing back on that one. After the Epstein files and all that stuff, and I've always held out the possibility that there are elements of the U.S. government or world governments in general that work with demonic forces. I mean, that's what the whole idea. There's two versions of the Illuminati, right? One is just this political group that wants power. But then the other more popular one is that they're working with Satan to destroy mankind, that they have access to dark magic. And there's, some people believe in the Illuminati, but don't believe in any of the magical demonic aspect. They just believe it's a group of elite people trying to conquer and control humanity. But yeah, the U.S. government either working with demonic forces or, in this conspiracy, most likely working with aliens saying, you can abduct as many people as you want because we want your tech. Or they could just be going, there's no way we can stop them anyways, but tell you what, why don't you limit your abductions or try to limit your abductions to the homeless population? Because I'm telling you right now, family of 4 gets abducted. We read about the story in Nexus magazine or Coast to Coast AM covers it or something like that. You do lend it more credibility. This is sad, but it's true. You do lend that more credibility than if a homeless person came and said, this happened to me, and it was the exact same story. We probably wouldn't even hear the homeless guy's story. Probably would never even get published. And I'm not knocking Nexus magazine. I don't even know if they're still around. Or Coast to Coast AM. They'd be interested in it, but I don't know if any researcher would ever take it seriously enough for them to notice it in the first place. So it would be the perfect way to sacrifice a lot of U.S. citizens to aliens. Not literally, they're bringing them back, but saying you can put chips in these guys, you can do what you want to these guys, just make sure you drop them back off, and no one will notice they're missing. They do have families out there somewhere. But they're definitely... Could you stop flying over U.S. bases and shutting off nukes? Could you stop flying over Idaho farmhouses and abducting reliable witnesses? And that could be a reason why the U.S. government... We do have a huge homeless population in this country. And there are ways to limit that. But maybe the U.S. government has a motive not to. And local governments definitely have a motive not to, which again is political, but, it's sad. But the conspiracy cap, the what if, that's the reason why we have such a huge homeless population. It's because they're basically freebies for the aliens, or maybe even the demons. So I started off this episode saying I wanted it to be a short one because I'm not feeling good. And I've looked over, we've talked for 40 minutes. I do want to say this real quick. I got one more thing I want to say. We're not going to do the time travel story. I do think that one's really interesting. What was the thing I did want to talk about, though, that was quite brief? Let me see if I can pull it up here. If not, Jason, so you're telling me the first story was about your mouth again. And then this story's about a bum who probably poisoned himself. And yeah, the second story, it is hard to kind of rationalize, right? There was something I wanted to talk to you about that was super short. What was it? There's been some crazy stuff in the news recently. You remember that Havana Syndrome? A couple of years ago, all of our diplomats in Cuba started complaining of like nausea and headaches and like nerve issues. And they believed that there was some sort of secret weapon being used against them. The U.S. government investigated it and said, no, there's no secret weapon. It's just like a psychosomatic thing, almost like a psychosis, like a group psychosis, right? There's a hysteria, that was the word I was looking for. But it was dubbed Havana Syndrome. It was a series of symptoms that a bunch of people who working at the U.S. Embassy in Cuba had, Havana, Cuba, but the U.S. government said, it's nothing. Well, now it's turned out that apparently, again, this is all being kind of talked about, but no proof is for sure. The U.S. government, in the past couple months, bought a copy of this device. Apparently, it's a Russian-made device that we paid anywhere between $2 to $20 million. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it was closer to 2. But someone said, hey, no, that actually was a real device, and I'll sell it to you, to the U.S. government for $2 million or whatever it was. And the story is that we bought it, and it is Russian-made, or has Russian components in it. Now, I don't know how authentic this story is. Again, we don't have actual proof of it. There's been articles floating around about it, but when you read the articles, it's not like date and time and location, and this is the guy who bought it. It's people are coming out of the government saying, we have possession of this device that the government said didn't exist. Does this sound familiar? Right? Talk about the whole UFO cover-up. This was happening a couple years ago. And the U.S. government goes, that doesn't exist. Well, apparently a guy in Norway, this is a separate thing, a guy in Norway somehow got the plans for this device. So it must be out there. He didn't buy one, but he was able to get the plans for this device that apparently causes the Havana Syndrome. And he assembled it, and then he goes, anyone want to volunteer for this device that made diplomats sick to their stomach and made their heads rattle and their bones cold? And of course, he couldn't find any volunteers, so he tested it on himself. I'll put all these articles in the show notes. I just thought this was interesting stuff I'd read recently. He tested it on himself, and the first article, I read it. I'm going down each paragraph, and I'm like, what did it do to this guy? It just kept saying he tested it on himself. And I go, okay, and then what? Well, a couple days later, another article came out, and apparently this article claims that it gave the scientist brain damage. Which may not be true, right? That wasn't in the initial article. It could be true, because another reporter may have also got irritated at the first article and went and found out for himself. But brain damage was also a huge... I mean, when you think of brain damage, when I think of brain damage, I think of like the guy is now just like his brain's melted. He can make like one syllable for the rest of his life. His eyes are glassed over. Brain damage is a spectrum, right? You can have a low-level brain damage, which is not great. But, I've been in a lot of fistfights, and I've been in a lot of car accidents. So I have some low-level brain damage, or some people might argue medium level, maybe even high level. But, I have facial blindness, and I can't tell time. I can't tell people apart by their faces. It takes me a long time to be able to do that. A long time. Maybe a year or two. And of constant contact. And then I can't tell time. I really can't measure time shorter than 5 minutes, which should say something, right? Because at the very beginning of this episode, I go, hey, I want this to be short, and I just can't gauge time. I'm unable to. So, I wasn't always like that. I've always had a pretty poor memory. I don't remember much before the age of 12, but the facial blindness definitely crept up and has gotten worse over the years due to, repeated blows to the head and car accidents rattling my brain and all of that stuff. So that's low-level brain damage. I can still function in society. So who knows what he got? He could have got something like that, time dysmorphia. He could have brain damage, again, you damage your brain every time you drink alcohol. But when people say that, you go, yeah, I guess you kill off brain cells, but it's not like I now can't function. Now I can't speak or walk or anything like that. Not that type of brain damage. But interesting stuff. I always think it's kind of telling when the U.S. government denies, and then it turns out it's totally real. And not only is it real, they want it. So I thought that was an interesting story, one that I could tell quickly. I'm almost scared to look back over at the recording to see how long I've been talking. But we're going to wrap it up. We're going to wrap it up this episode. Yeah, I know this week was kind of weird. But I think at this point, they all have been, right? I don't think we can point to any week where everything worked out perfectly. Yesterday's episode came out really, really late. I think that was the beginning of me not feeling well, getting sick, and here we are, sitting, sweating in this chair when it's 40 degrees outside and my window's open. So, once again, Jason's sick. Like, Jason, maybe it's the rotting macaroni stuck in your gums. That's not that. It's not that. Must be something else. Must be Havana Syndrome. I'm going to sue the government. I'm going to sue the government for $2 million. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm so glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you next week. And I hope I see you guys at the movie weekend. Movie night, movie morning. It'll be a lot of fun.